Hey, Scott, thank you very much. Well, it was a Monday. A little interesting flip-flop action in the market today. What say you, Steve?
Happy Monday, Jamie. It was a Monday. It felt like a
Yeah,
Monday.
it did. It did. But having said that, still some very interesting setups and plays to show you guys, as well as some interesting Holly activity too. But before we get into that type of stuff, welcome everybody to the Office Hours webinar. I'm your host, Jamie Hodge. Got my sidekick in here, Steve Gomez. And so before we get rolling here, let's go ahead and just get through the disclaimer. Just want to make sure everybody in attendance is aware. If you do need investment advice, what to do, when to do it, all that good stuff, do yourself a favor, find a registered investment advisor or someone like a Series 7 licensed stockbroker that's legally allowed to dispense buy and sell community that we've built around the award-winning tech that is TI Pro. All kind of starts over here on the left with the trading room hosted by Mr. Barry Anderson. Guess the next best thing besides Barry about the trading room is the price, which is free, right? So there's a big crowd in there every day. From traders from all walks of life, beginner to intermediate to advanced. And Barry does a fantastic job at moderating a crowd of that size. Also showing you how he uses the technology to trade, as well as showcasing his trading style. And even more importantly than that, Barry loves to answer questions about the technology and help out new people. So if you haven't been taking advantage of the trading room, which is free, then you need to get in there and start doing that. Of course, for the 5 p.m. webinar slots, you get myself and Steve on Monday. Steve's going to take the steering wheel tomorrow for the trade of the week. Wednesday, hump day rolls around. Dan Merkin, our CEO and founder, along with our Chief Technical Officer, Brad Williams, typically giving you guys a peek at new features that might be coming down the developmental pipeline. Always entertaining with those two. And then typically Andy rounds out the Thursdays were the 5 p.m. Eastern webinars on Thursday with the trading studio, and I ride shotgun with him. And of course, our ever popular daily support session, which used to only be on Fridays, but we have since expanded that. Now it's every weekday, Monday through Friday, starting at 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern. Anything TI related is fair game, where you can go in there and get your questions answered in a live format by one of the traders, educators that's in there for the day. We typically have a different person in there each and every day. So on the next slide here, you'll see, well, let's see here, there we go. This is how you access the live support session, trade-ideas.com/live. Once you get there, you can bookmark that URL because it's there all the time, same bat time, same bat channel, conducted through YouTube. So moving right along here. New accounts since we introduced the AI module. And as you can see here, we're just kind of grinding higher. Of course, this year, bam, off to a banner start. Probably a little bit due to the fact that there's a lot more people in the trading game these days with everybody at home and no professional sports and all that good stuff. So we expect that momentum to keep going for the unforeseeable future, which is good. And, well, I just can't work my pointer today, bear with me. As well as our expanding user base, we're seeing more and more orders being pumped through our Brokerage Plus module, which is our trading interface, which currently, if you have an Interactive Brokers account, you can use Brokerage Plus to trade live, as well as use our paper mode as well. You don't have to have an IB account for that, but for live trading, the only broker-dealer active right now with Brokerage Plus is Interactive Brokers. Hopefully that's going to be changing relatively soon. Can't really give you an exact date, but I do hear the E-Trade port of Brokerage Plus is getting close to testing and completion. We don't have an exact day yet, but keep our fingers crossed, and hopefully that will be the first foray into the $0 broker-dealer space for Brokerage Plus. So stay tuned for that. And of course, live orders are in blue, demo orders are in orange, and each and every month the blue gets bigger and the orange gets bigger. So that's definitely a good sign. People are loving Brokerage Plus, therefore the orders keep increasing. All right, and here we are with today's agenda, and in keeping with tradition, always like to let Steve start off at the top of the hour here, talk about the big tracking ETFs, where we've been, where we might be going. So Steve, if you're ready, I'll kick it on over to you.
Yep.
And you have the comms, sir.
Okay. All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you. More of a broad index. We'll get to the NASDAQ in a second, but some of the things that stand out to me, obviously, we're 4 points to the shortest bear market ever down here statement, but no matter if we pull back and erase all of it, I just think the market is zoom shallow. They just keep getting bought. This one got bought. That one got very weak hand on marching in one direction. It's not looking for anything. So who knows what's out there? And I would say that. But other than that, there's no bear case to be made, as I like to say. The moving averages are all on top of each other. And I think that orange line will come into play soon enough. Now, if we move on to the leadership role, and if we right click and do markup, there's the respective high in the prior NASDAQ before we fell, and you can see that this is the way up. Nothing really to rattle this market, even much more so today in the NASDAQ. Look at that big, deep shallow pullback, I mean to say. It's actually kind of a 2-day pullback, and that's the most the NASDAQ's probably willing to give at this point. Ideally, honestly, the word I'm looking for here. Coincidentally, it bounced right off of the 10-day moving average, which is always a very interesting occurrence for me. Almost filled that gap, not quite, but pretty good, close enough for government work. That might have been all the NASDAQ needed. Again, there's no bear case to be made here. Every dip continues to be bought. You can make the argument as to why it's doing what it is with the Fed printing money like crazy, but all we need to do is look at the footprints in the sand and then what's really happening here. So NASDAQ, else to see, go end period, if that doesn't be another backstop to flagging pattern. All I see, I will talk tomorrow about the trade of the week, which is off to a good start. Again, it's from the talk a lot about, but if we zoom in, it never gave any of it back. I love the sideways action, and it didn't even wait for the 10 period. That just shows the extra strength that was behind it. And so it triggered and it closed in the green today. Just a little price alert for me there in blue, but we'll talk more about that tomorrow after we have another day. It's doing a great pattern, which is kind of fractal. It worked great on the 15-minute and also works even better for swing traders on the daily chart, and I'd call it the horseshoe pattern, and Jamie's familiar with that. It's actually one of the first events that Dan built for us here. It's called the false gap up retracement. If anybody wants to look that up in the search tab, it's called the false gap up retracement. You can do that for intraday stuff. We can't do it, but if you identify it with your eyeballs on the daily chart like this, it's just simply something that gaps up and doesn't give much of the gap back, and as it moves to highs, it's kind of a horseshoe pattern, so that's why I call it the horseshoe. Jamie remembers. But other than that, that's all I've got for you, Jamie. There's no bear case to be made. We could use a little shower. This market's getting a little frothy. It's been partying all night. It smells like beer and champagne. It needs a little shower.
The horseshoe pad bottom type thing.
Yeah, real quick
Very
before I pass it back, I glanced over at the questions. Pedro.
I was just thinking about Pedro's question.
Yeah,
Yes.
in the tools and options section here, I'm going to go to tools options. Look down here. We're defaulted to an 8. You can change it to whatever you want, and that will change globally for everything for you. All right, so hopefully you got that. And I'm sorry your volume's bad, Lek. I think everybody else is doing okay.
Yep, not getting any more reports of anything. So sometimes it's just your internet service provider, or maybe something's bad between you and us as far as the connection goes. You might want to try logging off and logging back in. Sometimes that fixes it. Alrighty, Steve, let me take the helm here, and we'll get on with the business. Okay. All right. So before we get started here, to now drop those into the chat area. So when we start talking about those, if you want to concur with you, it looks like S&P is a foregone conclusion. But of course, we will not know until a couple more days from now. Short side alert, what the market as a whole might be up to today. So no big, surprise here when I saw these readings after the first 15 minutes, a 67% green bias. I'm thinking to myself, today might be that day. We might just go up there and pop highs today, or get very close to highs. but that was not the case, all right? When we get up here and we're just what did Steve say, about 4 points away, we'll swoon down today. That was right after this first 15 for another, took that little leg down. So for as we all know, any favorite indicator, sin, every once in a while, it's just not going to do what you think it does. And today, they did the little rug pull today. We're long in this first being, but check it out. We're not seeing any of that today, all right? It's basically non-existent with the exception of Yelp. So let's just go ahead and take a look at Yelp real quick here. Let me get rid of my post. Get rid of these lines as well. Okay, so 75 for a nice period of time after the signal comes, but not getting anywhere near our stop level, which is way down here. And this one barely counts. We do have a larger number here than we do have here, but look how long you had to wait, okay? This is marking the price at the close. Now you did have a little bit of time here, but if you didn't take those cookies up there, then it just basically regressed all the way back down to almost flat. So if we pay attention to the exit price here, 22.80, right in this last candle here, but we did have opportunity all the way up to 23.31. So there was a nice little bit of profit in here. Of course, do we know that that's where it's going to stop before it stops? Nope. Closest thing we can do is consult our daily chart and see where it might be running into a little congestion, right back into this congestion or potential supply area back around July 6th, 7th, and 8th. So, a little bit of spread in there, but pretty much that was it, okay? Got a little bit here, nothing really much more to talk about as far as conservative profit and a moderate spread here today. Due to the nature of the market and what we saw the SPY do right here, it's pretty much a trade around day for Holly. Usually we have more opportunity between conservative moderate spread, and then we have a couple of trade arounds that might have presented some good opportunity. It's kind of opposite today. All right, got some stop outs occurred due to swoon on the market. So we've got some, a little bit more interesting trade arounds today than we typically do in the moderate and conservative spread arena. So let's take a look at those trade arounds today. Number one, well, I'll tell you what, let's save the best for last here. Let's look at TDY first, if I can find it. Let me just sort by, well, sorry. My eyes are playing tricks on me. I meant to say DY, okay? Not TDY. All right, so here we have it. Now, what is a trade around exactly? Well, it's when you see Holly closing out a trade or potentially getting stopped out of a trade, and then sizing up the trade and seeing if there's any opportunity there. So I tell you what, let me get rid of those lines. TDY fits that bill pretty well today because here we have the entry line or the entry signal at 46.75. And then what happens soon after that? We do come down here and visit the stop area, which is the red line right here, coinciding with the 46.39 value that we see here. Holly gets stopped out. For the next 30-minute candle, we kind of hover around the stop area, but then we slowly tend to trade, or we slowly trade away from that line. So when you're seeing stop outs on the AI, if they just come through this stop area hard and fast and they keep going, that's not going to be any interest of a trade around. It's when they come down here and basically the stop area acts as a backstop or a pivot, whatever term you like to use here, and observing how the stock acts around that stop area. Does it just crash through and keep going, or does it stop and kind of go sideways for a while? And that's exactly what DY did here today. So we got a couple of candles right here, then we get a close above, close above, close above. So once we see 45 minutes of this type of activity, trading in between the original signal and the stop area, then this gives us confidence. Hey, the timing was off a little bit. We had the market swoon down. Maybe the market's recovering. How is this stock acting around its stop area? So once we see this recovery and a couple of candles inside the stop area between the entry signal, we can say, okay, now I might want to take a chance on this one. Holly got stopped out. It's acting nice, acting well, behaving around the stop area. So, whether it was this candle or the beginning of this candle, we could have went ahead and taken a stab at that stock at DY, getting long here. A couple of benefits here. We get a better price than the AI, and if we stick to our original stop area, we're taking less risk. And then we can see we did have a move higher. Now, granted, it wasn't anything to write home about, it wasn't a huge move, but it's the concept that's important here. How does the stock act around the stop area? Okay, so that was DY as far as a trade around candidate goes. HLT, not a bad one too. Get my pointer back here. There we go. All right, HLT, pretty much the same type of song and dance here. Getting long right here at 85.66, going sideways for a little bit. Boom, stop loss triggered right here. And what does it do? It just barely wicks through the stop loss area and then right back up. So as soon as we see this type of activity, especially a wick down to the stop area and then a recovery, and then we have a higher open here, once again, the same opportunity presents itself. Could it get a better price right here than the AI using the same stop area, or maybe just right outside that wick? And we see what happens. Nice little upturn there in HLT after seeing Holly get stopped out. So another great trade around candidate there. Once again, if it would have taken more legs down here through the stop area and we saw candles closing below the stop area, we know that that's not a good trade around candle. PSX and XEL are next. Let's take a look. And this one, actually, I'm going to go ahead and talk about this one anyway. Let's see, what is the distance there? 72.15 on the stop, and what do we bottom out here? Okay, not too bad. 71.94 was the low of that candle, 72.15 was the stop. So looks a little further away, but from a dollar perspective, it's not really that bad. Just not quite as pretty as the others. Typically, I like to see the wicks down. And then we're about halfway. Again, I probably had to be a little bit more liberal, a bit further outside of that stop area with those wicks, and we could have enjoyed this nice little run up here to this. Once again, not quite as pretty as the other two, presenting a little bit more of a move there. And this one really did kind of set the tone. It's one of the better ones I've seen in quite a while here. This entry, we kind of got a little glimpse here of what PSX was up to earlier in the day, because of, this one didn't come, what was the time there? PSX, 11:58 Central, we could just call that noon Central Standard Time, so 1 o'clock Eastern, with about 2 hours left. We get the entry right here, and boy, look how tight that thing is. Just goes down there and stings the stop area, followed by these nice 2 green candles here. So boom, just barely touching the stop loss area. We get a nice green candle here. This guy opens up. Probably a little bit of time to get a better price than the AI, somewhere in this area right here. But heck, on this one, even if we would have gotten the same price as the AI, 63.67, 63.65, or anywhere in that neighborhood, boom, as Steve likes to say, second mouse got the cheese on this one big time. All right, and let's count it up here. 63.67 all the way up to almost 65 there. So capturing the lion's share of that move with a little bonus here with a opening range break playing out. So let's see here. Yep, playing out after the signal. So if we could have got in it here, enjoying a nice run up, we get a nice range break right here. That would have been an excellent spot to add to the position right there and capture the lion's share of the move for the remainder of the day. So that little downturn in the S&P, probably did a lot of damage to a lot of people, hopefully just for the short term. But also once we see that recovery there, and we've seen Holly stopped out of some plays, well, that presents a whole different round of opportunity in the form of trade arounds, okay? So just keep that in mind as you move forward. Yeah, we like it when the moves go our way immediately, but that doesn't happen all the time, and we're always having to take market conditions into consideration. So just try to remember that moving forward. If we see any of this type of activity in the future, you'll know to focus more on the trade arounds, which, a lot more of those today than the conservative profit, moderate profit spread. So hopefully everybody kind of followed along with that. If you do have any specific questions about how I was, or the metrics that were involved here, by all means, pop it out there. Yeah, Pedro, when a stop occurs, that's how much we're willing to risk. But when we come into the AI, whether we're taking the trade, whether we participate in the trade and got stopped out, how the stock acts around that stop area can or cannot present additional opportunity, all right? Trading is all about timing. Even though all of Holly's strategies are based around statistical probability that we can see down here, sometimes the timing is just a little bit off. And going back to what I said earlier, one of Steve's favorite sayings is sometimes the second mouse gets the cheese, all right? A lot of the times, whether it's a Holly play or a trade that one of us gets into through some of our own other windows, we'll get stopped out only to see that stock turn and go the way that we think it should have went in the first place, okay? And sometimes we have to make a second entry. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't, but sometimes the timing is just off, and we can make a second entry based around a stop area or some other metric that we're paying attention to. Okie dokie, so that's about it for Holly today. I think I got all those, yeah. All right, four up, 4 down. Big trade around day as opposed to moderate conservative spread. So now let's talk about some of the bread and butter plays here. And there were quite a few coming through these windows today. Now, we're going to be taking a look at plays that came through these windows right here. I recently renamed these Turbo Breaks 2.0 highs and Turbo Breaks 2.0 lows, using these windows to find nice, clean opening range breaks to the up and to the downside. Now, what I really like about the recent modifications that I've made to these windows, if we pop into configure, on my old turbo breaks, I was using new high, of course, as always, but I've made some changes to the volume parameters. In the older versions, I was using 1 minute volume of 3 times or greater, and using either daily volume metrics that everybody uses, like 500,000 shares a day, or just forgoing that for market cap of 4 billion or higher. I made these changes, and instead of using the traditional volume metrics, I'm just starting with relative volume of 5, and the stock had to have traded at least 100,000 shares already on the session to have it be triggered through the window here. Now, what I've noticed is I'm seeing a lot bigger moves in the stocks that set up nicely. I'm also noticing less symbols coming through the window, but not too few, okay? And when we're dealing with an alert window, that's typically where you want to be. The least amount of symbols coming through to present some quality patterns. So having said that, we had some really nice setups on the long side today, which I'm going to talk about here. So let's start with I've got a couple here that we're going to talk about. Hold on one second here. Just can't get my mouse to do what I want it to here. So MCRB, XTNT. Okay, so let's take a look at SG first. All right, 15-minute candles here. Okay, so clearly we can see what we're looking for here. We're looking for this opening range break. I've got the high marked off here. There's a nice little wick there that kind of ruined an even more perfect setup, but that's the rules that we have to play by. I'm going to go ahead and put another line down here at the low. So this is our high, this is our low established in the opening 15 minutes. No big surprise there to see an opening 15-minute candle like that. So what do we have after that first 15-minute candle? We just kind of went to sleep here in a night. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Over 2 hours of consolidation on the intraday time frame here on SG before we finally get back up to this point right here and break that high. All right. Notice what has been happening with the stock according to the 10 period. It's fitting it like a glove right here, giving us additional confidence. So see SG pop up, hitting a new high right here. We use a stop right about here. which is always going to be the prior entry candle here. Actually, this one was a little bit late, but let's see here, or did I just click on the wrong button here? There we go. I just clicked on the wrong button here. So the alert came through right here as this thing was hitting new highs around 10:45, and you can see what happened after that occurred. We just went topped out up here right about 11 bucks before taking our little pullback here. So with the entry price coming about 10:45, 10:50-ish, a nice little 50-cent move on a $10.50 stock there. Not too bad, not too bad. And once again, it's the quality of the pattern here, all right? No, not too much energy expenditure from the open of this candle up to that level right there. A nice clean break and a move higher, all the while levitating nice and well above that 10 period there. So that was a real pretty one right there on SG, and even prettier on UBX here, okay? Check out this little guy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, an hour and a half into the open. You know, the one prior was nice and clean. This one even cleaner. I mean, look how tight that range is there. These are 15-minute candles, so about an hour, count that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes. You get the alert coming through, UBX hitting a new high there. Look how tiny your risk is. And even though that is the low of the prior 15-minute candle, I'd probably be tempted to just to give it a little bit more because it seems so small there. But then when we mark off the reward area, I mean, that is some big risk versus reward, ladies and gentlemen. Not really sure how many times we could fit that in there, but it's a lot, okay? So going on this one from 1136 and topping out at the very max high, 1545, even down here, we're looking at 1460. So from a percentage basis, one of the best ones I've seen in a very long time. And guess what? It's a biotech stock, okay? And these things just keep showing up. And I think they're going to continue to show up ad nauseum, because who knows when we're going to be out of all of this, whatever you want to call it, going on out there. But the biotech stocks are coming out of the woodwork, especially a lot of these lower dollar ones. And don't expect that to end anytime soon here. All right, so UBX, textbook, beautiful. Moving right along here, we had ADMS, not too shabby as well. Not quite as pretty as UBX, but a little bit prettier than it. Let's go ahead and put a little line at the low there, just so everybody buyers impact. So then what do we have here? Consolidation. In other words, buyers and sellers became equal, and we had a nice little crack of that nice tight range right here at the 447, 448 level. Once again, 10 period controlling the show here. And once again, an extremely tight, could have just easily marked it off here as well. But the bottom line is, it doesn't really matter because it didn't even come test the low of this candle here. And hopefully everybody can see what I'm pointing at right here, this candle right here. Even if we would have used that wick, wouldn't have gotten there. Probably eyes are more geared to gravitate to this level here. But the bottom line is, it just doesn't matter. Got a nice little blast off right here, nice little volume launch pad. So this guy coming in right at the 447 level and topping out up here around 540, potential reward area right here. Plenty of time to exit this trade as these candles played out after we had that little pop to the high there. So keep in mind, it's all about the quality of the pattern. Several high quality patterns coming through this window today, and a lot less symbols to deal with than the original versions of turbo breaks up and down. Hey, guess what? Adams Pharmaceuticals, biotech, okay? So as I said earlier, don't expect these guys to stop showing up anytime soon. How long is it gonna play out like this to the long side? Don't know, but there will come a time and a day where the same thing's gonna hold true for the downside. So those are some pretty good ones, ADMS, UBX, and SG, all occurring later in the day. But having said that, it's all about the pattern. And some of these things present themselves very early on in the market, I should say. So sometimes in the first 30 minutes or so, but we have to give some type of pattern time to develop. So we have a nice visual to key off of. All right. So the next two that we're going to look at here came a little bit earlier. So as you might have guessed, we have to use a little bit smaller of a time frame, and we're just going to go down to the 5-minute time frame here because the pattern is the same. Just looking at it in a different time frame, you can see ADMS, it's the same information. We just have more candles to deal with here. However, this little guy right here, XTNT. And just to show the difference here we are looking at the 5-minute candles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. About 45 minutes into the open, XTNT does its thing. But if we're looking at 15-minute candles, you know, it's still the same game. It just doesn't look quite as attractive, quite as inducing, okay? So that's why if you're going to go after these things in the first hour, probably better off looking at a smaller time frame chart. Here we can clearly identify the buyer comes in, runs it up a little bit. What is that? 1, 2, 3, 4. About in the first 20 minutes, we get up here and then we slowly consolidate sideways, only to come back up here when the volume comes back in at level, and this thing just blasted all the way up to around 287. So once again, same thing. Could use the bottom of that 15-minute right there, but my eyes would want to go to this level right here. Still doesn't act like it's going to go down to the stop area at all. And we get a nice little, just a nice run. First you get the little leg up, and depending on how aggressive you are, a second opportunity to either, to add to that position. Could have sat with what you had, but this would have been a great opportunity to add to that position as we get the pattern repeat itself about 1 hour into the open. And even if you missed this little area right here, and then you saw this guy develop an hour into the open, still got the line share of the move there in XTNT. Oh, look, what field are they in? Ooh, I never would have guessed. Medical holdings. All right, and I think we got one more of these guys here in the form of MCRB. And I mean, so many of these nice tight patterns here. Okay, this one occurring 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about 30 minutes into the open right here. This one a little bit different of an animal, big gap. Okay, looks like it closed on Friday 465, and we opened up at 2003. And most people would probably look at the stock and look at the gap, and when they think about going long, they're like, ooh, I'm not going to touch that thing with that big gap. But really, it's about controlling your risk on the intraday level, which was very doable right here. All right, so we get the break right here, 2201, and then this thing goes, the gap was huge, and enjoy some nice intraday profitability as MCRB takes that run up to almost 33 bucks. Okay, and I think that about does it for showcasing these two windows here. And once again, I've already dropped the cloud links into the chat area there. So a little time check here, about 45 minutes is up. Leaves a little bit of time here in case anybody has any questions about anything or would like for us to pull up a chart or anything. So about a 5-minute window here to take questions before we bring Scott in to walk us out. Yeah, Parker, if you look at the chat box in your GoToWebinar, you should see the links residing in there. You just have to find the chat window in your GoToWebinar. Steve, are you seeing the links over there on your end? Or Scott?
I saw one. I saw Trade Ideas Cloud link. And let me look for more. I just see one.
Okay, well,
if you've dropped more than one, then
yeah, okay, I don't know what's going on. I will. All right, so please tell me that you can see that one.
Yeah, I see the timestamp on that one.
Okay, all right. And this is the short version.
All right, yeah, sounds good. A couple items on the way out. We do have an ebook all about earnings and earnings season and how to use it to your advantage. So go ahead and grab that. It's got some cloud links so you can import the strategies discussed in the ebook into your layouts. Go to trade-ideas.com/earnings to grab that. It's free and easy to get. The podcast that we release intermittently has some great episodes up already this year with some interviews by our Sean McLaughlin and guests. Search for Trade Ideas Podcast wherever you listen to your pods. Addis has a subscription, download previous eps, and get ready for the next one. Summertime is a code that'll save you 15% off your first month or year of Trade Ideas. And if you're on standard, decide to do an upgrade, grab that code, use it to save on that too. You can find Jamie on Twitter at QuantBot. Steve Gomez is at Today Trader. We've also got at Trade Ideas. Find us on Facebook, Trade Ideas Pro on Facebook, and like our page. info@tradeideas.com is the best place to send any of your questions. Goes into our help desk software and gets you the fastest appropriate reply. So the recording of this webinar will be up later on tonight or tomorrow, and you get an email reminder about how to find it tomorrow from GoToWebinar. Thank you, Jamie and Steve. Have a good one.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, everybody, for popping in, and we'll see you tomorrow.